Hello and welcome to my channel. Okay, so basically the thesis for my video today is that it does suck to suck. No pun intended because of like the vampire thing, but I love to brag about the fact that I'm an avid consumer of junk food movies. A really bad movie can come out and I'll be standing on my island like, hey, I had fun, but for you guys, ooh, sucks to suck. Believe it or not, it happened with Argyle this year. But now, how the turntables. Nosferatu was one of my most anticipated movies of the year, and I just didn't love it as much as I thought I was going to. Thus, my thesis being that now I suck. It is not fun looking at all my friends on Letterboxd and seeing them all give this movie 4.5, 5 stars, and then I'm like, oh, wait, what? I still liked the movie. I have a lot of positive things to say. There's a lot of nuance here, and that's what we're getting into today. So if that sounds good to you, then I hope that you stick around. Not just for today, but for all time. Click the subscribe. Yeah, I can do a funny little voice too. Cast me as Miss Orlock next time, Mr. Eggers. Also click the like button and the notification bell. That way you never miss my next review. This is going to be my last video of 2024. It's unbelievable. And then we start getting into all of the 2024 ranking stuff. So I gotta rank, all the horror movies released in 2024. I gotta rank all the horror books that I read. I've been talking about this just because I'm stoked. But this is it, the last video of 2024. So let's get into all my spoiler-free thoughts on Nosferatu, and then eventually I will get into spoilers. You are safe for a while, I'll give you a heads up. I already let you know my feelings on this movie, but I have many thoughts that go beyond those feelings. Why was this one of my most anticipated movie of the year, if not my most anticipated movie of the year? I love Robert Eggers. I love The Witch. It took me multiple viewings. I think I was too young the first time that I saw it, and I just was not worn down enough by society. Then I got a little older. I experienced more of what the world has to offer me as a woman, and then I was like, hey, I do understand why she bailed on society to dance around naked in the woods. Hey, I get that. The Lighthouse was a total miss for me. I think that it was technically an excellent film. The performances were also amazing. So just on all technical levels, it's visually very interesting, stunning, whatever. I just didn't have a good time with it, just didn't end up liking the movie. The Northman is my favorite Robert Eggers movie by a mile and a half. Good old-fashioned revenge, a gorgeous period piece, an excellent cast. That was one of the most badass movies ever made, and in a time where the scope of blockbusters is rather small, everything was very practical, it was very grand. That is why I was so excited for Nosferatu. I think Robert Eggers, despite, being a little bit hit or miss, is one of my favorite working directors right now. Although I do feel like I managed my expectations. I didn't walk into that theater just buzzing oh my god, it's finally time, whatever. I always manage myself. I always kind of bring the excitement level down, just in case I'm let down. And it turns out with this one, I was just a wee bit. Now, I wasn't let down by the performances or the technical aspects of this movie at all. Aaron Taylor-Johnson, I felt like I saw a side of him that I have never seen. Most recently, I saw him in Fall Guy. No, I am probably not gonna go see Craven the Hunter. Maybe. I don't know if I ever knew just how funny he is, and then before that he was in Bullet Train. It's cool how he's kind of becoming a true A-lister. I feel like he went away for such a long time. Maybe it's because he was married to that gross old lady and had children at the age of 22. Love to see his comeback, love to see these really deeply emotional sides of him. We'll get more into that with spoilers. It's also really fun to let him use his natural accent, but it almost sounds like he's putting on a British accent. I don't think that his natural accent is as strong as the one that he was putting on. In the movie, he sounds way more posh, and maybe that's kind of part of his character a little bit. But anyway, Nicholas Hoult, I've loved the whole trajectory of his career. I love that even now he is still choosing the most interesting roles, and he's doing, throughout his career, I feel like I know him best for the horror he's done. I don't really know Nicholas Hoult outside of, Warm Bodies, The Menu, now Nosferatu. Oh, loved him in Renfield. I still need to see Juror number 2 as well. He's hot right now. He just has such a good face for horror. He is such an expressive person. Really vast range, because in this movie there is not really a drop of humor almost anywhere. He maybe once or twice, but he really dove headfirst into this role. As of course did Lily Rose Depp, and I think that all the praise that she is getting is not unfounded. I didn't know that she had this kind of role in her. I was completely unfamiliar with her game. I did not watch The Idol. I guess I have seen her in Silent Night from 2021. one, but I don't even remember her in that movie. She's also in Tusk, but I think that's more of like a cameo moment. And I haven't seen The King, so that one's on me. Her ego was completely dropped. People are using the language that Bill Skarsgård completely lost himself in the role, which is true. I feel like she did as well, because the things that she had to do in this movie, I think would be impossible to not be self-conscious about, and it doesn't matter. Ego is completely shed. Like, she is a whole different kind of being in this film. And Bill Skarsgård, there is not much more that can be said. I think one of my favorite things that I've read about his performance is that you could look for an hour at him in this role and try to find his face or try to hear his voice, and you don't. Like, Bill Skarsgård is not there. He's gone. It was to the point that after the movie was over, I was looking in the credits and was like, wait, no. And then I looked online and I was like, wait, no, what? Because I didn't think that that was his voice. That's how completely different it is. And yeah, his face, his eyes, like nothing is giving Bill Skarsgård whatsoever. It's so strange. But like for a role like this, I do understand why they completely had him done up in prosthetics and everything. It makes sense for this role in particular. What it doesn't make sense for is something like the Penguin, because then it's like, just cast a fat actor, like get an actor of that look. This had to be Bill. Like, it had to be, because nobody else could have done the voice like that. I mean, maybe, but then also with like his posture, his height, his physicality. Oh my God. I literally also, like the first time that you see him on screen and he's speaking, I didn't think that that was the Count. I was like, I think like maybe is this supposed to be, because he's got the creepy fingers. Is this supposed to be him? But I thought he was played by Bill Skarsgård. And like, who the hell is this? It was that good. That's how gone Bill is. That might have aided in quite a bit of my confusion as well. I think upon my rewatch, my score hopefully is going to go up. I think that's going to be a recurring thing for me with Robert Eggers, where his films are going to feel hit or miss until I give them their redemption rewatch. Northman was a hit immediately. I saw that in theaters twice. Still need to give The Lighthouse a redemption rewatch, but by like my third viewing of The Witch, I was like, this is one of the best movies ever made. Upon this first viewing though, I had no trouble appreciating all of the technical aspects. It's almost a perfectly made film. The camera choices were so interesting though that I was a little bit too focused on that and not what was actually going on. I was like, wow, why would he move the camera like this? Oh my gosh. And then I was so intent on that whenever there would be like a slightly soft focus or something, I would focus a little bit too much on that. But it wouldn't happen too often. It sometimes would be like when they're doing a stunt that they probably didn't want to do a second time, because I think that Nicholas Hoult did a couple of his own stunts. I don't know. Haven't done my research on this movie yet. I was very taken by the production design, as I am with all of Robert Eggers' films. The attention to detail there is really exquisite. The only thing that I felt was lacking just a tiny bit, just a little bit, was the costuming. But I'm glad, because I don't think the costumes should have been any kind of standout. This was a dark times in Germany, and so I wasn't expecting to see anything like opulent. I didn't want the wardrobe to really stand out. Hair and makeup on Bill. If anyone in the Academy had an ounce of sack, then it would be nominated for makeup. But then on everyone else, I also, like, it wasn't a standout, which was fine. But unfortunately, the wig they had Lily Rose Depp in, just, it was too noticeable to me. It was too perfect in the front. And I think that definitely was the look that they were going for with her, because Robert Eggers does like a very porcelain doll looking woman. Anya Taylor-Joy, I think, was originally cast in this role. I don't know if that was ever official, but she had some scheduling conflict, probably with Dune. Get the look, love the look, not crazy about the execution of the wig. But see how I have to nitpick, because this movie just technically was so brilliant. This isn't a spoiler, because, you know, if you know anything about the adaptations of Dracula, there is a moment where the Jonathan Harker character, which in this movie, what the hell is his name? Thomas Hutter. Okay, so when he goes up to the castle, when he arrives there, this movie enters into like a dream realm. Everything becomes, I don't want to say desaturated, but it's true, because there are moments where this movie transitions pretty much fully into black and white. It's so dreamlike. Like, I love a surrealist nightmare. That was probably my favorite scene in the entire movie, is when he is first arriving to the castle. The snow captured in this movie, like the entire atmosphere was so good. And it just reminded me that, hey, movies like this can still be made. Hey, it is possible for movies to look look good. Yeah, these huge like $250 million blockbusters, oh right, they do have zero excuse. Also, the secondary antagonist of the plague was phenomenal. Everything from the snow to the coloring to, you know, dipping into the world of the surreal, it all lent itself to this very grim and very oppressive atmosphere. This movie was a bummer. But beyond all the technical elements and these fantastic performances and everything, I felt that it fell a little flat. It just thematically at times felt a little bit shallow, which I can't fully explain until spoilers. I also didn't really feel as though I knew the characters. The most that's really established about them, Thomas and Ellen, is that they're a couple and they're in love. And Ellen, she's got her problems. She doesn't want Thomas to like go on this journey. At no point in the movie did I go, yeah, I know these people. The whole time, Ellen just kind of felt more like what she represented of the times, more than an actual character herself. And it was also really unclear to me a lot of the times when character motivations would shift, particularly with her. And if you are a patron, you caught my review of Honora, or you've heard me talk about it at all, I really pushed back against the idea that Honora was not a full character, that her motives were unclear, that she was somehow unrelatable, because there was like a really popular review from a sex worker that was like, I didn't identify with Honora at all. And it's like, well, yeah, but you as sex workers are not a monolith, correct? And also, I find it to be more a reflection of the viewer than of the movie itself if like you cannot view a character as a whole person. I really push back against that because, you know, typically like I am able to at least project my own stuff onto a character. I almost never look at a character and go like, okay, but who are you? You know, what's your deal? What's your vibe? That's where I'm coming from in saying that I didn't really feel like I knew her. Kind of a big deal for me personally because that's not generally something that I experience. I certainly didn't experience it with The Witch. I did not experience it with The Northman. The Lighthouse, that's just a lot of crazy shit going on. Like that's, you know, that's not super relevant. But I'm just talking about like the women characters that I would identify with, right? And it's not a necessity to identify with the character. I just, from my lived experience, am obviously going to identify more closely with the women in the movie. And I couldn't quite do that. Like I really had trouble latching on to what they were doing with her character. The ending also felt very rushed, and all at once in that moment I was like, oh wait, has it been about this theme the entire time? I kind of thought we were talking about something else here, but okay, but now it's about her? Like for most of the movie, thematically, it's about like the looming oligarch. It's done so beautifully with the shadow work in this film, which I haven't even touched on yet. A lot of the times, the way that the Count would sort of influence people, he's moving via these literal shadows. So you'll see his hand, you'll see him kind of, you know, float across this window. Oftentimes you do see the shadow coming up on somebody's face, you know. The metaphor of the shadow hand that is like constantly steering us in life was so good because it's so true. I mean, there's not like a lot of things physically in society that have a literal stranglehold on us, and yet that it's always there. It's like how Musk, Zuck, Trump are almost single-handedly ruining our lives, and I have to think about them almost on a daily basis. Yeah, and I don't argue with fools, so don't be stupid about that in my comment section. You don't have a seat here. I thought that was done really well. We're gonna break that down more in spoilers, but then for like the last 5 minutes of the movie, it shifts gears, and it's suddenly about the sacrifices women make in society. It was so odd because it felt like Ellen was supposed to be the leading role, like she was the main character. It seems like that kind of was the intention, and then the movie had such a male point of view, so it just didn't make sense. Like it didn't come together for me. That's why the ending felt so rushed. I honestly thought that it was like messy as hell, and this also can be attributed to the fact that this is a movie that would probably benefit from multiple viewings. Maybe I'll completely change my tune on that because I have been known to drastically change my opinion sometimes on movies, particularly with really high quality movies. It took me, I think, until like my 3rd viewing to consider Black Christmas a perfect film. I have to stew with things sometimes, but I've been thinking about the movie since I saw it a couple days ago. It's been stewing, and the more that I think about certain aspects of it, the more that I like it, but the more I've tried to kind of clarify that and turn that aspect of it around in my head, I just haven't been able to get there. I do obviously highly recommend Nosferatu, and I probably don't need to tell you that. I'm sure you've gotten out there yourself already. I don't know if it's because the atmosphere was just so bleak and I wasn't having fun, because it was almost no reflection of the technical aspects of the film, but I really am having trouble with the thematic intentions of this movie. That is a real struggle I'm having. So currently, it's sitting at 3.5 stars for me. I think that you'll enjoy it more because according to, like I said, everybody on Letterboxd, I very much am on my island, and yes, once again, it does suck to suck. Now I know what it feels like. I'm editing right now. Hi. Another thing I just want to say before I get into spoilers is that a lot of people are praising this movie for, I guess, sort of its like exploration of feminine sexuality, which I didn't feel at all. And people are like, oh yes, so horny. I thought the complete opposite. I thought this movie was dry as hell, so I don't understand where people are coming from with that. In my opinion, this movie needed to like really take it there a whole lot more. It felt very tame in terms of like the sensuality and then also the gore. Some of the gore was really good, but not a whole lot. I feel like this movie is super horny to people that are not that horny. That's the best way that I can describe it. Also, I finally watched the original Nosferatu, and I was kind of stunned to learn that this remake was almost beat for beat. Eggers really didn't do anything that daring with this material, which is just so shocking because I thought that he was born to make this film. Alas, whatever, I'm gonna go. So anyway, now it's time to get into spoilers. You are no longer safe, and don't spoil this movie for yourself. I mean, you might already know what's up if you know anything about Dracula, if you've read Dracula, which I have. I should have mentioned that. I've read Dracula. I have not seen any adaptation except for Francis Ford Coppola's, which I didn't like, so maybe I'm just not a Dracula girl because I didn't like the book either. Anyway, yes, we're getting into spoilers now. It's spoiler time. So go watch the movie. I'll be waiting right here for you when you get back. I don't think that I really want to talk about the plot because there's not a whole lot of interest there. Despite being over 2 hours long, it's not very plot heavy. A lot of it is about the atmosphere and crafting this dread and building up the character of Orlok as he sort of plays off of Ellen and his motivations concerning her, and then how that has a ripple effect on everyone else. I really just want to get into the themes because I need to know what you guys think about my interpretation, and I need your interpretation. So as already mentioned, the looming specter of the oligarch was done expertly. This powerful male figure that really only exists in the shadows. And I love it in this story so much because even though he's dead, still his influence on society is so strong. It's giving Ronald Reagan. You can trace basically every bad thing going on in the United States back to some policy that man enacted. That's what American Psycho is all about, baby. But anyway, the plague was also a very direct metaphor, but it did feel very intentional how the Count has to travel by boat and the boat brings the plague. Because of capitalists, because of capitalism, we are forced to be productive and maintain profit even during a worldwide pandemic. And so because of those capitalists, because of trade, the disease is still able to spread. This cargo ship brought a bajillion of these diseased rats, and then it starts ravaging this town. So not only does it work as this wonderful horror device, also wonderful secondary antagonist, helps with the atmosphere, but on a thematic level, I'm like, yes. I also thought it was interesting how Orlok was able to take away the patriarchal dream of Aaron Taylor Johnson's character, Frederick. Also, were these people supposed to be German? Because they were in Germany, but they all had British accents. That was unclear to me. Orlok ruined his trade. He took away his wife and his 2.5 kids. It doesn't really matter how high up you climb in society if you are upper middle class. The reality is that you're still not part of that top 1%. You are still not in the club. That can be taken away. The only person who really has that power is Orlok. And this is what I'm talking about the movie having a really strong male point of view, because also for Thomas, Orlok has taken away the attention of his wife. I'm a little unclear about this, but he is this idea that this sort of removed, very powerful, much more wealthy being. And so his wife lusts after someone with more experience and power. I don't know. This is where things get really weird and where I just feel like such a numbskull because I can't figure her out. I couldn't tell what was literally possessing Ellen to say things and what was actually her in regards to her horniness for Orlok. Because the whole movie, like, I'm under the impression that he is seducing her and is somehow controlling her. And then it seems to be some sort of twist that he is this shame that she's carried because she's down critically horny. Like, she is down bad. But in a lot of moments, it's played up so much that I'm like, okay, so this is like Orlok's doing. And then sometimes it's not really played up very much, to the point where I'm like, okay, well, you should have made this movie like 10 times hornier if that was the idea. Or take away her horniness completely and it is all his persuasion. It seemed muddy. Like, that seemed really muddy to me. Had it been clearer and this movie was way more horny, maybe I would have been like, okay, relatable queen. Yes, let's explore feminine lust. And maybe that was the intention, but I was not feeling it. The last 5 minutes just felt like this really resounding moment where everything was supposed to come together. But what I was feeling from that moment and with Willem Dafoe's dialogue was that, like, was the takeaway that women being down that horny makes them worthy to literally sacrifice themselves? I wasn't rooting for that. This movie wanted to outsmart the audience in that moment where it was like, okay, so she had this kind of grand master plan all along, but then because of this sort of reveal that Willem Dafoe's character, this doctor, oh, he is actually crazy. Oh no, he is sane. He just knew what her plan was. Like, was she influenced by him under his care to do that? A lot of confusion would arise for me, as you can tell, when these characters' motives would seem to flip. So ultimately, I really would love to carry that conversation on down below, because I'm really curious what other people's interpretations are, or certain things that maybe you guys could like point out for me that I'll keep a more keen eye out for that might bring things together a bit more. I think the movie would have benefited from more of her POV, just because yes, we get the feminine experience of something very, very real being wrong with her and nobody really believing her or caring enough to really get down to the bottom of what's going on. We get the experience, we don't really get her perspective very much, besides her nightmares, but those are so surreal that it's like I can't really find my footing there. I don't really know what she's thinking or feeling during these nightmares. It didn't indicate to me whatsoever that they were something positive, that Orlok, what was indeed her shame, that she was down bad for him. It seemed like she was scared, as she should have been. We all have crazy exes like that, you know? But I can only harp on that so much, so, you know, let's carry that conversation on down below. I will end off with some of my favorite moments of horror. I think obviously the whole design of Orlok was just fantastic. Anytime that he would be on screen, honestly, I would be like, but really more specifically though with the back of his head, or whenever he was feeding, because the sound design, mama. Hearing him slurp and gulp, that was a lot. And then seeing the back of his head and seeing the decay, that he was this true corpse. I feel like I haven't really seen a vampire depicted like that before. Almost zombie-like, even. So the first time that we saw him feeding off of Thomas, that did a lot. And then in the final scene, of course, too. I'm glad that they used that sparingly. But the gore definitely felt necessary. Robert Eggers, I remember he said a while back, like, well, it's been a long time since vampire movies have actually been scary, which I think they're supposed to be, so that's what I'm gonna do with Nosferatu. And he did that. I don't think that I really ever felt fear. I didn't really feel the anticipation of a jump scare, and there were a couple jump scares. The first one of the movie worked exquisitely. That one rocked me back, and then none of the rest of them did. I thought that was kind of a weird touch. I think they should have just kept the first jump scare in and then never done another one, because then, you know, we would still be like on our toes, maybe expecting them with all the tension built up around everything else, but then we never would get that release of an actual jump. So I wish, like, the stupid one where what's her friend's name? Doesn't matter. She's looking up the stairs. It's very quiet. And then suddenly Ellen pops up behind her. I just don't like want to see that I don't want to see that in a movie like this. I felt the existential dread. No, I don't know if I could say dread. Dread is a form of fear. I very much felt the weight of this movie. That's what I'll say. And it was because they put the horrors of vampirism in full display. You feel the full weight of the stakes of this because because you can see how painful and disturbing it is when he feeds on somebody. This was a masterclass in sometimes, yeah, you should show the monster. You should show him right off. Pull an anti-Jaws, you know? Sometimes it really fucking works. Even after talking it out right now, though, I still feel the same way. Like, something in me feels kind of empty after this movie-going experience. Something is missing, something's not clicking, and I really, really do hope that I figure it out. I'm hoping it's gonna be just like The Witch, where, you know, my second watch is gonna be a different experience, but we'll just have to wait and see. I think that I'll probably end up talking about it again in my January recap. I don't know if I'll have time to go see it again before the year is up, so stick around. If you haven't clicked subscribe yet, then literally, what are you doing? Do it. Click that button, and then you won't miss out when I have a more well-rounded take on this film. Maybe next time I'll get into a little bit of the occult vibes of this that they definitely didn't flesh out at all. I'll get into the sort of Renfield character. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll get into that with my dad over on the Patreon because he really wants to talk about that this week. That's gonna be our little New Year's special. He also will be ranking his top 10 movies of the year. So yeah, shout out to the Patreon and shout out to the patrons. They keep the lights on at Haunted Hippie Studios. And depending which tier you join, you get a bonus video over there every single week. I also have a second channel where I talk a lot about physical media. There is a huge playlist over there, but I also post a lot of travel content, and then whenever I go on spooky outings, I vlog it. That's a lot of content coming to you every single week from little old me. You can also find all my social media. Everything you need is listed down below, but more than anything, I just hope that you enjoyed this video and that I catch you in the next one. Bye!